Welcome to the Sports Pharmacy Network, where we dispense clinical and evidence-based information to optimize health and human performance. I'm Brandon Welch, and I'm the founder of the Sports Pharmacy Network. My guest today is Chad Collins. Chad is the chairman, CEO, and co-founder of Corganics, a leading life science company dedicated to developing and commercializing cannabinoid CBD therapy, exclusively available through pharmacists and healthcare professionals. Chad has over 25 years of executive leadership experience in the biopharmaceutical industry. He has built multi-billion-dollar prescription brands and businesses in the US and North America. Chad's career in executive leadership includes large global organizations including Sanofi, Stryker, and Galderma. Today we discuss CBD, also known as cannabidiol, and its potential impact it can play on athlete health and performance. Over the past decade, CBD has surged to popularity for its potential therapeutic benefits, whether that be for anxiety, a pain reliever, to help combat sleep, speed up muscle recovery, and alike. Within the realm of elite sports, evidence suggests CBD has increased exponentially, which is likely due to both its removal from the World Anti-Doping Agency prohibited list alongside the evolving legal landscape. Today, Chad discusses the evidence and science behind CBD and its clinical utility in athletes. Stick around to the end as Chad unveils best practices to shop around for high-quality CBD products. Your journey to mastering the intersection of science and sports starts right here. Without further ado, here's a quick message from our sponsor, Sports Farm. Did you know that the original sports pharmacist, Robert Nickel, is bringing back his line of Sports Farm over-the-counter and prescription drugs? Well, back in the 90s, he created in his lab a warm-up rub for professional and Olympic athletes called the Wasabi Rub. He was the first sports pharmacist to be invited to participate on the U.S. Olympic medical team as the official sports pharmacist. Wasabi Rub is a combination of menthol, methyl salicylate, and capsaicin that goes on cool and heats up as the athlete gets going. It is available as an over-the-counter product. Robert has also developed Keto Rub, a prescription topical anti-inflammatory cream called ketoprofen. For more information or to watch the Olympic Wasabi video, go to sportfarm.pro. Again, that's Sport Farm, spelled S-P-O-R-T, farm, P-H-A-R-M, .pro. And now for my discussion with Chad Collins. Thanks for being here, Chad.
Hey, thanks, Brandon, for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. You and I have been in discussion over the past year or so about some of the great things you're doing at Corganics. And, I really want to start the discussion off with just some basic level science on CBD and what do cannabinoids do in the body?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you are spot on what you said earlier. You see CBD everywhere. You can't drive down the road, whether you're in Florida or Texas, where we're based, or any state around the U.S., without seeing CBD everywhere. And so there's a lot of confusion on why and what is it doing in our body. So interesting enough, the endocannabinoid system was actually discovered about 27 years ago. Now, for 2,000 plus years, cannabinoids have been used for a number of medicinal reasons and ways. But really, about 27 years ago, they really uncovered what the endocannabinoid system is, what it's doing. And the basis of it is really trying to regulate homeostasis or balance in our body. So why do we have that? Why is it important? Well, we all know about the central nervous system, the cardiovascular system, the endocrine system, and all of that, and how those function. But this endocannabinoid system really is there to help really stimulate all of them and help with homeostasis or balance so that they all work efficiently the way they were meant to. So the body in general already produces cannabinoids. A lot of people don't know that, but our system, we're producing cannabinoids every day. There's times where we may be in what we'll call cannabinoid dysfunction or endocannabinoid dysfunction or ECS dysfunction. And what that means is maybe we're not able to produce enough cannabinoids to keep up with certain things like inflammation. So obviously you're involved in the sports world, and inflammation it's a daily occurrence of managing inflammation, whether it's an athlete or not an athlete, but your athletes for sure. Well, with that, how do we produce enough cannabinoids? And sometimes maybe we're not able to produce enough. Maybe the inflammation is driven by an acute injury or a chronic injury that you're dealing with. And the body is trying to, at a cellular level, drive down that inflammation. And that a big part of that is our endocannabinoid system playing a huge role. So, for example, CBD has got a number of other benefits inside of it itself, like amino acids that are play a crucial role in whether it's muscle growth, recovery, and reduction of inflammation as well. And so, what you're seeing right now is this influx of retail version of CBD, and that can be a number of different things, whether it's isolate CBD or broad spectrum or full spectrum. And I'm sure we'll get into that part of the discussion. But in general, especially if we could go in a lot of different directions on how does the body regulate that inflammation through its endocannabinoid system. But if I were to layer into one area, it's going to be inflammation. That's going to throw us out of whack. And as you control inflammation, there's a tremendous number of other ancillary benefits to that, as you probably can tell. That's why there's some people that go, you know what? I reduced inflammation and I'm feeling better from that pain. Well, you know what? I'm sleeping better. Or I'm less anxious. The body is just working more efficiently when we drive down that inflammation. And cannabinoid therapy and particularly working with our endocannabinoid system, now you're bringing more inflammation, or you're bringing that inflammation down through added cannabinoid. Then hopefully your body starts to adjust and bring even more cannabinoids. And then now we've got a more efficient athlete. We've got a more efficient just person out on the street, if you will. So in short, we've got these, and I'll keep this part brief. We've got receptors, CB1 and CB2 receptor sites. Now they're located all over the body, by the way. And that's why you'll see in the future, Brandon, pharma is coming to this space with a number of prescription-based products that deal with modalities all over the body because they can interact, those therapies can interact with those receptor sites that are located literally all over the body. So I'll give you one example, the skin. The skin has both the CB1 and CB2 receptor site. So with that, that means that cannabinoid therapy really has a strong role in skin-related inflammatory issues, or even right below the skin. CB1 is predominantly found in the brain, right? And so now you have therapies that will interact with that CB1 receptor site, maybe around central nervous system modalities or disease state. So it's a fascinating area without question. It's going to continue to expand, especially as pharma comes to the table with numerous education platforms, kind of like Corganics. So we're kind of the tip of the sword or tip of the spear when it comes to cannabinoid therapy and educating of healthcare professionals and pharmacists.
Great explanation, Chad. And what I always find pretty interesting, and I'm sure that this was an insightful moment for a lot of our listeners here, and knowing that the body has a natural endocannabinoid system, right? Where these receptors or these functions are actually produced endogenously, right? But it sounds like too, sometimes if we want to kind of elicit or alleviate that pain response, we may need like a CBD product to help better attenuate that response. And so I always like to think of too, like the opioid body system, right? That's essentially a system in our body where it produces endogenous, functions and products to elicit a biological response. And I think sometimes, when we hear CBD, it can be foreign to a lot of people that our body doesn't naturally have an endocannabinoid system. But you just kind of laid down a lot of different functions, especially with it keeping our body in homeostasis. And I really like how you touched on or distinguished the difference between CB1 and CB2. Between CB2 maybe being a little bit more selective toward the dermis or the skin, and then CB1 you may find more in the central nervous system. And I'm sure that it's important for our listeners to know this is because I'm sure this is how you help recommend or guide CBD therapy. Like there may be certain CBD products that may target more of the CB1 receptor versus CB2. The binding affinity can be different. And I'm sure that's something we're going to touch on a little bit later in our show. But kind of moving on to our next question here. Look, you guys at Corganics, of course, I've done my homework and research, and I remember you sending me a little package probably a few months back. I got a chance to try the products, and you guys have gone through a very rigorous process and standards that you've established to help offer a clean and quality product to either athletes or just your general population who can benefit from CBD. Can you tell us a little bit about the rigorous process that you guys have gone through to offer such a high quality and clean product?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Our background is not that of we didn't just stumble on CBD. Myself and Reggie Gatewood, who co-founded Corganics with me, we were working on the commercial and education platform strategy for Sanofi Pharmaceuticals going back over a decade ago. So we were introduced to that endocannabinoid system and cannabinoid therapy a long time ago, and understand really what's the difference between what we'll call a pharma grade type product that's more regulated versus retail CBD out in the market. And what that allowed us to do was to go to a different level of sophistication when it comes to the science of our products, for one. So we had a really good understanding of what pharma is doing as far as delivery methodology, what is the science behind not just cannabinoid therapy, but delivery and absorption. So, for example, for us, we've got advanced lipid technology that allows us to have superior absorption to anything that you would necessarily find in the retail space. We also wanted to source from one source, right? And somebody that really just interacts with the pharmaceutical industry, because we knew that the rigor and the quality around the quality controls for safety and how clean our products would be, and then also the transparency. So we go through significant testing from seed to from the ground to the seed through the entire process, and then from there we're going to Brandon. Am I still on by chance?
Yes.
Okay. You froze for me for a second. Sorry about that. So with that, we go through a rigorous process of understanding exactly what's in our products and what's not in our product. So when you get to the end stage for us is ISO certified lab testing of each one of our products. We want our products to be the most transparent that there could possibly be out in the market in the US. So I'm going to give you a quick example, a little show and tell. There's a QR code and batch number under QR code and a batch number that leads to exactly what's in this product. We test for every heavy metal. We test for over 70 pesticides. We test for molds, microbes, and detectable THC. Now, our products don't have detectable THC, and I can get into kind of the why here in a few minutes, but we want a patient or an athlete to know there is no THC in our products, but they also don't have to worry about a lot of the gaps that we see in quality in the US retail space. If you look at the retail space in general, most of them, in fact, over 90%, don't test for heavy metals. There's probably a good reason why they don't test for heavy metals. A lot of times, maybe they have heavy metals. And we know where you source a product is critically important around that. Additionally, a lot of times companies will throw a lot of other ingredients on their products, whether it's scents, flavors, other actives. And the problem with that at times is they can't control for the quality of where all it's coming from. Or a lot of times in the retail space, what happens is they source from multiple locations. And when you do that, you are losing total control of quality, literally from ground and seed to end user being a patient. And for us, that's just not acceptable. Coming from pharma, we understand that we're trusted. We're trusted by our pharmacy partners, our physician partners, and we want to have a product that their patient, literally, whether it's a topical or an oral, they know exactly what's in it and what's not in it. If I go back to even some of that data, Johns Hopkins and the FDA, Penn Medicine, they've all done these retail audits of the market, and it's pretty disturbing. Most of the products, 88%, are mislabeled by at least 15%.
Wow.
44% of what they've pulled into the from the market is mislabeled by more than 25%. So what that means is they really have no idea what's actually in their body. And we think patients deserve something better than that. I'm not saying that all the products out there are bad, but what I'm saying is a majority of them are mislabeled. Up to 30% have detectable THC. So a lot of people don't know that has detectable THC, which means you could very well test positive on a drug test.
Yep.
And even though the box says THC free or no THC, 30% of them out there do have enough where you could possibly test positive on a drug test. And again, we think people deserve a much better option than that. And that's we'll go into this too, but it's why we partner with healthcare professionals and pharmacists that are having these conversations with their patients, more intimate conversations around the real health journey of that patient. And patients are seeking these safe, natural alternatives, and they're asking their pharmacists. So we want to we want to bridge that gap together. That's why we appreciate what you do and your peers are doing, is really trying to help be a incredible filter and guide for your patient.
We try to be the good gatekeepers, I'll say. Now, one of the things that I really appreciate about the rigorous process and due diligence that you guys do, Chad, is it sounds like you guys do third party testing, right? And I did see on your website too that you offer a certificate of analysis. And so it's not like it's tucked away anywhere, but someone can go on your site. And if they really want to get down into the minutia or the nitty gritty of the ingredients, they can simply click on the certificate of analysis, which kind of gives you kind of a layout of what can be in that product, what you guys are testing for. And so if someone scans that barcode, is that giving them access to that certificate of analysis too?
That's exactly to this exact product. So you know exactly what's in front of you and what you're about to take or put on. And we think that's critically important, right? It's uh, patients are looking for these safe, natural alternatives, but they deserve to know what's actually in it. And so that's not a hidden game for Corganics. We operate, and I keep going back to it. We operate more like a pharma company, though it's a supplement, but we put the rigor behind it like you would a pharmaceutical company. I mean, we are produced in a CGMP, which is another FDA audit, FDA registered facility. We even have NSF Safe for Sports certification for our whole facility,
That's big.
which I'm sure your listeners know and understand. We can guarantee that there's no detectable THC in our products.
Yeah,
And if
for
I
all of
could,
our.
I'll
Go ahead, Chad.
yeah, I'll add this. Yeah, I'll add this back to kind of the first question you asked around the endocannabinoid system and cannabinoid therapy in general. CBD actually interacts with both the CB1 and CB2 receptors. THC actually only really interacts with the CB1 receptor. That's where it has its affinity. So CBD, and going back in our pharma days and understanding exactly where our friends in pharma are developing future prescription products, most of it doesn't have THC. What they have found is CBD is the most effective cannabinoid when it comes to reducing inflammation and having an impact on inflammation more than THC, more than any of the other minor cannabinoids. It is CBD is the most rigorously tested already, but it also has already proven out to be the most uh, strongest when it comes to anti-inflammation.
Yeah, that's great to know. And look, we've seen CBD marketed to do a plethora of things, from helping to combat anxiety, stress, insomnia, help with muscle recovery, and then as obviously you just mentioned, help serve as a pain reliever. What are some of the science and evidence-based therapeutic areas athletes can benefit from the use of CBD products? And a follow-up question to that, is there a therapeutic dose or window you would recommend for them to take?
Yeah, no, all great questions. So one of the things that we're proud of, we actually at Corganics, we invest in data. So we already have our first IRB approved study in pain, sleep, and anxiety. So as a cannabinoid CBD company, we can't make claims, right? We can't say, oh, it's going to do these three things or four or five things. Uh, but we do have data, and that data will tell you that our products are effective in pain, sleep, and anxiety. So if you think about an athlete, most athletes are going to, at some point in time, have some level of pain or injury or recovery needs that they have. And even in that recovery, sleep becomes such a vital element. We work with also a lot of professional athletes through their physicians and pharmacists. Anxiety, that's a big deal in America. A lot of patients are just very anxious. So
Some
when you
of the
think of
athletes
pain,
suffer
sleep,
from performance
anxiety,
anxiety.
inflammation, that's right. That's exactly right. And so we hear these success stories with patients on our products. We can't necessarily make certain claims or just but what we can say is we're even getting more data. So, for example, we have studies that are starting at Rush in Chicago, NYU Langone, that'll be around sports medicine, orthopedics, and looking at somebody who's got chronic injuries versus somebody who's maybe in an acute setting and using different regimens of our products to help reduce the volume of narcotics, namely opioids, as an alternative to NSAIDs for patients that really can't take an NSAID because of GI or liver or allergies to it. And then also looking at functionality afterwards, sleep improvement after an injury. There's a lot of things that we're studying with our products specifically. Now, CBD in general, there's a number of third party peer reviewed papers and data out there that suggests that, especially driving down inflammation, is going to be very positive for patients, especially athletes. So we know that there's data, and we'll even have more and more data specifically to Corganics as well, which is really, really exciting. So I know you and I talked about another product we have in development, but that rigor in the dosing is important. So I'll touch on the dosing. Coming from pharma, we gained a really good, strong understanding of absorption. And I'm going to give you an example. So we have a soft gel. So this is a product that is a soft gel. So easy, small, easy to dose, and it has advanced lipid absorption technology. So what that means is we're going to get down to the cellular level, especially being a lipid platform. Even taking it with food would aid with absorption. But you're going to get a 70% absorption in this new 30 milligram bottle or 30 milligram soft gel.
Hmm.
In your 30 milligram soft gel, you're going to get a 70% absorption rate. Well, that 70% absorption rate is maybe even over three times the absorption that you could get in a normal soft gel. And it's because of that delivery, right? And the science behind that delivery. So what we know is you don't need high volumes of product if you can efficiently get it to the patient, right? And that's the critical difference. So a 30 or 25 milligram soft gel out in the retail space compared to ours, it's apples and oranges, completely different. Same category, totally different absorption level from a science standpoint. We also know that the body can only absorb so much. We have, and I'll give you a great example. We have protocols with a lot of orthopedic surgeons that utilize our products, and they may say, "Patient, I want you to take." Maybe this is even after a surgery in that kind of acute injury phase. Take two of those soft gels, maybe one or two drops, and a drop or two of our topical. And really, that's about the max that your body's actually going to be able to absorb. So you don't need these huge dosing regimens of 5,000 milligrams or anything like that. We put ours in that place where we know pharma is studying. We know those absorption levels that are appropriate. And so the great thing about the products in general, they're non-toxic, right? So you can't overdose on hemp-derived CBD, or there's never been a documented case of anybody overdosing. So there's no toxicity to it. That being said, your body can only absorb so much. So if you overtake, your body's just going to excrete it in some form or fashion, which is good from a safety profile standpoint.
So Chad, just so I understand, so are you saying like there's almost no ceiling effect or threshold to how much you can take of this CBD product is because the body can only absorb so much, and whatever excess there is, it'll just pretty much be excreted out of the kidneys. Now, all
That's
that
correct.
makes sense, but also, I'm gonna play a little bit of devil's advocate here. But also, I know with certain
Yep.
products, like for example, I'll use vitamin C, for example, right? Vitamin C, it's a water soluble vitamin. Your body takes what it needs and obviously gets rid of the rest. But if you do mega doses of vitamin C, you can start to have diarrhea, bad GI distress, even like, I mean, vitamin D is a fat soluble hormone, but there's certain other vitamins out there where if you take too much, it can cause kidney stones, like calcium's one of them. Now, what are some of like those safety concerns or side effects you can see from someone, taking maybe mega doses of like a CBD product?
Yeah. So I think you're spot on. Probably the exact same thing. We always say, look, if you were to take an entire 30 soft gels or an entire tincture bottle all at one time, you're probably going to get a little GI distress. So that's how you're going to your body's going to get rid of it one way or another, and
Yeah.
it may not feel comfortable. It's again not toxic. Your stomach is not going to be pumped, but you're going to get rid of it one way or another. Now, we know safe dosing like ours, and we always say on any of our products, it will say 1 to 2 doses per day.
Uh-huh.
Typically for us, it's usually one dose to a lot of patients. Now, unless it's an acute setting where it's being used around a significant injury or something like that, where maybe they're going to take two a day or maybe even more. But we really leave that up to the discussion between you and the patient for that. But we on each of the bottles it says 1 to 2 doses per day, and
Now,
that's it. That's we feel safe about that.
Now, with the different therapeutic categories that we talked about, whether that be sleep, being used as an analgesic, such as a pain reliever, it helping to combat anxiety, is there like, and I know the evidence is obviously limited here, but is there like a specific maybe dose range I should take if I'm trying to use it for sleep versus using it for pain management or anxiety?
Yeah, great question. So let me take a step back and talk about maybe even the very first FDA approved CBD on the market. There is one. A lot of folks don't know that, but Epidiolex was developed by GW Pharmaceuticals, and then a little over a year ago or so, it was purchased by Jazz Pharmaceuticals for $7 billion. So Epidiolex, it was the first CBD FDA approved. It is a oral solution, and it starts with a dose of around 5 milligrams up to a max of 100 milligrams of CBD. And the indication for it is patients with seizures or seizure disorder. And so, interesting enough, from a dosing standpoint, there's no THC in the product, by the way. It's pure CBD. They don't have other minor cannabinoids. It's literally pure CBD. And so we learned from that, but we also learned from pharma what they're studying for sleep, as an example, osteoporosis, a number of other areas and modalities that pharma is going for. But that's where and why we developed exactly what we developed from a dosing standpoint. So I've mentioned this, but even in our IRB approved study, which involved over 500 patients, over 200 taking our soft gels once a day, uh, we found improvement in sleep of 53% over the course of 1 month. And so for patients, that obviously the dosing, now that soft gel was 25 milligrams and it was our nano emulsified soft gel. We're accelerating that with this advanced lipid technology. So we're going from 25 milligrams to 30 milligrams, and we're going from about 50% absorption to 70% absorption. Now,
Mm.
what does that do when it comes to another IRB? That's to be told. That's the stuff that we're working on with these additional studies. But we know that even one dose of our, when it was 25 milligrams soft gel, was effective in that patients slept better and reduced sleep disturbance by over 50%.
Wow.
So that dosing
Staggering
worked.
numbers.
We know that. Yeah. And that was just one of the things, and I think it's important to talk about
That's just
this.
25
In the retail
milligrams,
setting,
right?
that's correct.
Okay.
It's really boils down to the absorption level, right? So when you have 2 to 3 times the absorption, that means that if it we say take that 25 milligram, but you're getting over 50% absorption, you can't really compare it to a 25 milligram of another retail product's
Right.
25 milligrams when their absorption may be 15%. So that's where we know ours works. That's why we invest in the data. So having an IRB around pain, sleep, and anxiety, we wanted to look at standardizing dosing. So what happens when you take just one of those soft gels? That's why some of these additional studies we'll do, Brandon, will encourage, will also look at, okay, what if you took two a day? What
Mm.
does that do within a 2 week period, especially after an injury or a surgery, as an example, in the orthopedic space?
Right. Yeah, no, all that stuff, it makes good sense. And, thanks for kind of breaking that down to our listeners here. And, I will say this too, Chad. Is it safe to say for like, our athletes that may have some type of orthopedic injury, like let's just say some type of patella knee pain, right? Would you rather them take a topical CBD product, which may be a little bit more localized, and since it's topical or a cream, the absorption may be better versus taking like a soft gel or capsules? And then for the same question for anxiety or sleep, does dosage form essentially make a difference to the type of therapeutic area that you're treating?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really depends on what's the level or how deep is that injury,
Yeah.
with whether a topical is going to be appropriate or not. And do you need adjunct therapy that's also a systemic product, right? An oral. So it really depends on the level of injury. If it's closer to the outside or the skin, I think a topical is a great utility player for those patients. Again, in the receptor site, you've got CB1 and CB2 receptor sites located in the skin alone. You're obviously going to get some relief in that general area. If it's a deeper, and we work a lot with orthopedic surgeons that do joint replacement. If somebody's got severe osteoarthritis inside the knee or a hip joint, a topical is not going to get to the source of the inflammation. It's just not. That's where you're going to need an oral product on top to systemically drive down inflammation. That's why you get the benefits in sleep and anxiety because you've got this systemic approach. So I think there's times where having a combination of a topical and an oral are appropriate. There's times where a topical may be appropriate all on its own. And then there's times where you're going to need a systemic product and the topical is not going to be able to do a justice, if you will. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean that can make perfect sense. Using almost a multi uh model approach where you may be using one dosage form for immediate pain and the other dosage form for breakthrough pain, right? And so thanks for really breaking that down. Now, part of, the role of the clinical sports pharmacist outside of, counseling some of these athletes on, the different clinical aspects to optimize health and performance. The other thing that we really try to focus on is really dialing into protecting these athletes from clean sport. As you're probably aware, the World Anti-Doping Agency, also known as WADA, they have the regulations. NCAA has drug testing standards. Professional leagues, they have, the collective bargaining agreement that they have to abide to. And so, a part of that, it's very important to make sure that we're vetting these products appropriately, making sure they're third party tested, NSF certified, which, it's clear that your company is checking off those boxes. But now, one of the things that I see has kind of surged and caused some confusion is the different spectrums of CBD products, right? There's full spectrum, there's broad spectrum, and there's CBD isolate. Can you kind of speak to the differences between the three?
Yeah, absolutely. So full spectrum, obviously, that's going to include THC. That also typically is going to include like Delta 8, Delta 9, which are synthetic THCs. A lot of times those products will be involved in those particular products. So those are going to be north of 0.3% THC concentration, where that's going to now make it a full spectrum product, which means that you would most likely test positive if you were to drug test for THC. Then you've got broad spectrum CBD. So broad spectrum CBD, which is what Corganics is. In fact, in our products, you're going to find between 10 to 15% of our product is made up of other minor cannabinoids. And I mentioned it earlier, but we believe in the other minor cannabinoids. And as there's more data, some of those may have more affinity to helping with sleep. Some may have more affinity to helping with inflammation or anxiety or a number of other areas that are going to be important as we learn more. So we feel strong enough to put those in our products. We also think it benefits almost taking different approaches into the endocannabinoid system that gives you this, what we'll call an entourage effect. Not the entourage that involves THC, but an entourage effect around cannabinoid therapy in general. Then you've got CBD isolate. CBD isolate is what you find in probably 95% of retail CBD. It's easier to grow. It's easier to extract because it's just we're going to take the plant. We're going to basically just literally go with isolate. It's less expensive, and at the same time, from a therapeutic standpoint, what we believe, again, this is in of our company. We believe that sometimes you're going to start to have to ramp that dose up because you're going at it from one angle, right? So you're probably going to get to a point where you plateau and you go, okay, if I want the same dose response, I might have to take two of them or three of them. What we know with us and in broad spectrum, it's been shown that you don't have to do. There's not a dose response like that necessarily, or it's much slower. So you get more angle, more entourage effect may increase the efficacy of a product. That's where we stand. Now we don't have THC, so we're not full spectrum. And here's the why. It has nothing to do with us not believing that there's any value in THC. For us, from a strategy standpoint, we understand pharmacists like yourself, physicians like yourself are more comfortable if they venture into cannabinoid therapy with not having to add the other regulatory environment of THC into the mix. It adds to confusion and comfort level for the most part. Then you've got a number of patients across the US, adult patients. They're not necessarily looking to get high when they look for a cannabinoid based product. They're looking for safe, natural alternatives to prescriptions because they don't want the addictive potential or they don't want the side effects that come and the baggage that comes with a lot of prescriptions. And here I am. We're former pharma executives that wanted everybody on a prescription. That being said, they have a lot of drawbacks too with side effects. That's why patients are like, you know what? I want to try cannabinoid therapy. I don't necessarily need or want to get high, or I can't because of maybe drug testing, whether you're an athlete or whether you're a truck driver or law enforcement or wherever their background is, that a safe drug testing is part of just their day to day, right? They know that they may get drug tested. So
Right.
we
And
believe in broad.
go ahead,
Yeah.
Chad.
No, I was just going to say we believe in broad spectrum and the efficacy associated with it more than isolate. And we believe in full spectrum, but we don't necessarily have full spectrum products today. Doesn't mean that we won't down the road. We could turn that piece on of our development very quickly. Broad spectrum to us is it meets most of the American adult population that are looking for safe, clean cannabinoid therapy.
And I think that distinction is very important, right? So you hit on it. The THC component in high concentrations is considered a banned substance according to WADA, right? And so, it's interesting because I was actually reading a study a few days ago, research done out in Europe where they anonymously surveyed 500 rugby players to ask them what do they know about CBD, why are they taking it, where are they getting their source or information from. And there were some staggering numbers that I saw, right? And it was saying that close to 60% of athletes, or at least that population of rugby players, were getting their information from one, the internet, and then right after that, it was word of mouth from friends. And so when we think about the different CBD products that are available, whether that be full spectrum, broad spectrum, CBD, or CBD isolate, it's important for, athletes or even sports personnel to understand what this difference is to help kind of protect the athlete for staying, compliant with clean sport. And then also building or garnering that trust so that athletes can go to a healthcare professional, which is why, I appreciate what Corganics does. It's not direct to consumer, it's direct to healthcare professionals. They're the trusted, incredible person to make these recommendations. And so it sounds like for the most part, broad spectrum CBD kind of helps you stay in that safety window. And then, Chad, one of the things I read, and I don't know if you can touch on this a little bit, is sometimes broad spectrum CBD will use that vehicle of hemp seed oil. And for our listeners out there, hemp seed oil is an omega-3 fatty acid. And so that's where some of those anti-inflammatory properties can kind of help drive reducing some of that pain and inflammation that you may get.
Yeah, you're spot on. And if I can go back, one of your comments around just the safety side, and I mentioned this earlier. So if you look at the retail setting, even though most of it is isolate, Johns Hopkins, the Leaf Report, these big major third party audits of the retail space found that 30%, up to 30% of retail have detectable THC in it. Detectable meaning it's
Wow.
very likely a patient would test positive, it will show up on a drug test. And so, if you're, like you said, those rugby players that they're relying on a friend who said, oh, they've got some great CBD down here at the corner shop or on Amazon or wherever it was. And you go and buy it, and it says there's no THC on the product bottle. The label says it. But when you do real third party testing of that product, up to 30% could have detectable THC. Now you're in a bind. You're in a problem spot. I've got two sons that play Division I football. One just graduated last year from Tulsa, was on our products daily, our soft gels. I have one that plays at Texas Tech University today, takes our soft gels every day. Been drug tested multiple times. We work with team physicians for professional sports. They love the fact that they can trust a Corganics product. We don't have THC in it. And so I think it's an important area, especially for your athletes that are concerned about that, or The sports that do have that as banned substances like THC, we want to help protect those patients. I'll give you one other really quick anecdotal story. I played football at Texas Tech. One of my teammates became a DEA agent. 17 years as a DEA agent, went to a store, thought it was a reputable store to buy CBD. On that CBD, it said no THC, didn't have THC in it. He tests positive, lost his job with the
Oh.
DEA. So one strike, he was out,
Hmm.
right? Just now, after suing that company, because what they found was there was THC in it. They proved that there was THC, even though they said there was no THC. He just got his job back with the DEA, and he also won a lot of money from the CBD company for false advertising their products. You just can't trust retail versions, and that's really the end of the story on that.
And you know, it sucks to know that we're inundated with so many of these different CBD products, and unfortunately, you know, sometimes the ones that may not be the safest but are commercialized the best are the ones that people tend to cling to. It's this concept of what's called social proof, right? Where enough people, where if a consumer sees enough people talking about it or using it, then they automatically believe that it's a good product, which may not be the case. And so it's always important to do your due diligence, talk to a healthcare professional who has, you know, knowledge on what to look for in these products. And to kind of piggyback on that note, Chad, can you kind of talk to what are some best ways athletes or sports personnel can find a high quality CBD product? Anything in particular they should be looking for?
Well, I mean, of course, I'm a little bit biased, but one, I would always encourage them have a conversation with their pharmacist or healthcare professional first before you put anything on your body or in you and take anything. You should really have a conversation about all supplements because not all supplements are designed the same way or have the quality rigor, whether it's CBD or any supplements in general. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing around CBD specifically, you really need to make sure that they do have things like a QR code in batch specific numbers. If you were to go to a website and and you can't find that or you can't find it on the product, steer clear. Don't touch a CBD that you cannot tell what's in it, and that they don't have what I will call very thorough third party tests. A thorough third party test should tell you every chemical makeup of what's in that product. You should be able to see what's the percentages of everything in it. So the label tells you one thing. What is the third party test say? How close is it? Is it mislabeled? Does it have levels of detectable THC in it while even the bottle says it doesn't? Those should be readily available on every third party ISO certified lab test of a product. It should also show you heavy metals. It should also, if there's any heavy metals or that they've been tested, or pesticides, or molds, or micro. And again, I'll go back to when you're throwing scents and flavors and all these things to kind of cover quality gaps, you could be putting yourself at risk for molds or other things that you inadvertently, but those third party tests, I would always start with that to really understand what you're getting. Make sure that it's not really giving you full spectrum product, but says it's uh, uh, broad spectrum or isolate, right? So that's what third party testing should be. And unfortunately, a lot of companies out there don't make that very transparent to patients, unfortunately. But I would for sure, if I was an athlete, I would ensure third party testing and I would ensure that I'm having a conversation with my trusted healthcare professional and pharmacist without question.
So in summary, it sounds like third party testing, making sure we're talking to a healthcare professional, whether that be, you know, the sports pharmacist or the athletic trainer, strength and conditioning coach, sports nutritionist, anybody that's in that wheelhouse, making sure that it's NSF certified, or informed consent, whatever those certifications are that kind of qualify a supplement to be of high quality and meeting good standards. Um, and so, before we go, Chad, one of the things I want our listeners to know is, hey, where can health professionals get a high quality product such as Corganics?
Yeah. So thanks for asking that question. We would love to partner with your peers because we know they want to have they deserve something that could be trusted. Their patients trust them. You need to have one that you can trust as well, and your peers do. So if you'll go to Corganics.com, so COR, you can see it behind me actually, Corganics, Organics.com. We have a link there for healthcare professionals. It is extremely easy to become an account of ours. What we do from that point forward is, especially anybody that comes through the Sports Pharmacy podcast in this network, we want to give an additional big discount to get started in the practice. We actually do two different things, Brandon. The practice or the pharmacy can have our product in house, but we also can provide you an e-commerce code where, let's say you have patients that don't live right near you, can access our products, but they can only access it through your code. And so we share in a consulting agreement around that, but we make it super simple. So any of your network that comes to us, we're going to give an additional, we already give a deep discount. We're going to give an additional 10% off if you let us know that you came from being one of the peers and of this network. But we make it super simple for a practice and pharmacy to bring our products in, whether that's virtually in or literally inventory in. We produce a number of collateral materials and patient education that we provide you in the practice. So we talk about the endocannabinoid system with patients. The more they understand it, the more they're going to be excited about this safe therapy that potentially could really benefit them. And again, avoiding some of the prescriptions that a lot of them may be trying to avoid. And so we make it super simple from an education standpoint. We're going to give you a great discount on products in the practice, and we make it turnkey and one you can trust. So we'd love to partner with this network of incredible pharmacists for sure.
So you guys heard that, listeners. Chad unpacked a wealth of information here on how to get access to Corganic products. Make sure if you guys go to Corganics, CORGANICS.com, mention Sports RX Network for a good competitive discount. Well, Chad, that's all we have time for today. Hey, it was a pleasure having you on this network and this show, and we really appreciate your time today. And for our listeners here, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. We hope that you found the content of this episode insightful and thought-provoking for both your health and performance. As a quick reminder, you can sign up for our newsletter or exclusive membership offerings through our site, Sports RX Network. Again, that's sportsrxnetwork.com. Follow and share our content on social media and subscribe to our podcast. We will include any relevant studies or references in the show notes. As a reminder, the information provided by the Sports Pharmacy Network is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Thanks again for listening to the Sports Pharmacy Network podcast, and we look forward to enjoying you on our next episode.